So this week is Dark Skies Week, a time to celebrate and raise awareness for everything night sky related. I'm currently out at Mackled, next to the lighthouse, which you can just see there. A place I've never actually been before, if I'm honest. But I'm eyeing it up on a little scout mission right now because we've got a couple of good clear skies on the horizon for this week. And I honestly cannot wait for them. They look absolutely spotless on the forecast. And I missed out on one of the clearest nights I've ever seen from other people's pictures just the other night because I was working all day. And frankly, I just fell asleep because I was far too tired for it. So I'm really excited to get out this week. Hence why I'm out scouting right now. So the plan is, providing we get those clear nights, is to visit this location I'm at right now. And the Milky Way will be pretty much that way. So kind of opposite to the lighthouse, but there's some really nice kind of rock formations that lead out into the sea. And I'm also, with the lighthouse behind me, because the Milky Way is kind of going to arc, with the core being on the right and stretching right over the lighthouse to the left, I'm thinking it'd be nice to try a panorama around this little coastline with the lighthouse in the middle. Just got to hope that it's obviously clear the whole way, but the forecast, like I say, looks absolutely spotless. So we'll see how it goes. Now, one thing I'm not sure on is whether the lighthouse will be lit up during the night, but the idea is to kind of go behind the lighthouse on the opposite side afterwards, just before it starts to get to twilight, so you get the Milky Way core at its best height just before it starts to get too bright. And I really want the Milky Way kind of coming down left to right, kind of diagonal over the lighthouse with the lighthouse on the left. And you can only obviously do that on the opposite side. And I'll be very close to the lighthouse. So if it's lit up, then again, I might just have to time my shots quite well or shorten them, and hopefully it doesn't fail. But at least we'll have this location where it should play in my favor. So the way I'm planning for these images is using an app called Photo Pills. Now this is an app I've used for the past 10 years, and it's easily the best app I've managed to find for planning anything to do with the Milky Way, or even sunrise and sunset, just to get the exact location of where it might be at a particular time. So any of my previous Milky Way shots that I've shot over the past 10 years will have been planned using this app. Now, the other great thing about Photo Pills is there's even a mode called Night AR, and it's basically going to give you a preview of where the Milky Way will be at any given time. Again, you just scroll with your thumb through the time to nighttime or any day of the week, and you can see exactly when the Milky Way will rise and even the transition into twilight and then daytime. So you can see exactly when you need to be at a location, when you need to start shooting, and then when it gets too late and you need to stop shooting. So by using these, I now know that I need to stop shooting on the night at about 3:30 in the morning, because it's going to start transitioning into twilight. So any shots from there on will have a slight blue tinge in the sky, which you kind of want to avoid unless that's the look you're going for. But if you want pure darkness, you need to be shooting any time before that. So I think I might try and get here for about 1 o'clock maybe in the morning, and just so I can have a little scout around the location, and then maybe start shooting from about 2 o'clock onwards and end the night up at the lighthouse at about 3:30. Now I was hoping tonight would be nice and clear to be able to give these images a bit of a try, but I don't think it's going to happen at the moment. It's looking very cloudy. From tomorrow night though, and then the night after that, they look absolutely clear. So we could end up spending one of the nights here and then the next night somewhere else, which I haven't decided on just yet. I've got a few locations in mind, which I've already previously scouted. So yeah, fingers crossed we get some good clear skies and I can spend 2 nights under the Milky Way. So it's slightly after Dark Skies Week now, and I was actually hoping to have this video out at the end of Dark Skies Week, but safe to say I got a little burnt out by the all-nighters and then all-day editing, so. But here we are in the second location I chose for the second night, which is the Ayers National Nature Reserve, which got this nice beach stretching across the whole horizon. It's very flat terrain all around, which lends itself nicely to a whole Milky Way panorama arc. Although I did do the panorama at Mackled Lighthouse, I wasn't all too happy with how the Mackled panorama worked out in the end. I thought the foreground would really lend itself a bit better to the image, but it was quite underwhelming, and the lighthouse as well was very different to how I imagined. It wasn't actually like a searchlight going round, it was just a kind of pulsing light every 20 seconds that would just pulse 3 times. So it really didn't light up any of the foreground at all. Because of that as well, I had to boost the ISO up quite a bit, so it's quite a noisy image. And there was also a lot of haze out that night, so that added to the noise even more. Now the image from behind the lighthouse actually worked out a lot better. And because the light was actually more of a pulse rather than a rotation of light, it gave me a nice 20-second gap to capture all my sky shots. Initially I did want to try to track the sky to get a nice clear image, but I would have only been able to achieve that either further away from the lighthouse or if it was off completely. But because it was on, and it was quite hazy that night, so it's kind of lighting up the surrounding area, I decided to stack the images. So I did 16 images in total to stack, and there was a nice 20-second gap in between when the lighthouse was lit up and when it was off. So I had to count in my head 20 seconds each time and just do a 15-second shutter with the ISO boosted up to 12,800. And I think it worked out quite nice for that. So the second night of shooting was a lot clearer, thankfully. There wasn't really any haze in the area, so I decided to give another panorama a go out at the Ayers here, because there's nice flat plain land around us, and you've just got this nice sweeping beach along the horizon. And you can see right out to the distance, which is a really nice view, but it really highlights the light pollution in the area, or at least on the surrounding islands in the British Isles, which is obviously a bit of a concern, and it kind of destroys the view for the panorama. But at the very least it lent itself to a bit more ambient light hitting the surrounding terrain, giving a nice foreground to complement the sky. So to take further advantage of the super clear conditions, I then quickly hot-footed it over to Port Cornay, which is one of my favourite locations to capture the Milky Way at this time of year, because you've just got this nice open coastline with a little cottage on the right-hand side and a tree line, which can be tricky when you're trying to blend certain foreground with the sky at night, but I find it really lends itself to some nice foreground. Now I had been to that location just the previous year, and I had captured the wider kind of scope of that coastline with the cottage on the right-hand side and the Milky Way towering from the left. So this time I kind of wanted just to utilize the low tide with the water kind of spilling onto the rocks and get a bit of a fine art image in a way with the tracked sky. I had very limited time left that night until it transitioned to twilight though, so I only managed to get 2 images tracked of the sky at 2 minutes each, which I did stack, but it doesn't really make a difference when it's only a couple of images. You need, I'd say, at least 8 images to get a decent stack really. But thankfully tracking the images let me use a lot lower of an ISO and a lot higher of a focal length, so I could really zone in on the Milky Way core. So for this last image, I actually used a bit of a twilight blend for the light that's on the sea and the rocks, as well as myself, just to bring out the detail a bit more and make the image a lot clearer for the foreground. This time of year really lends itself to being able to do that, because you're shooting the Milky Way core as it rises right before the twilight crossover. So you can shoot all your Milky Way images and then just wait, say, 45 minutes to an hour, and then you can capture the foreground with a bit of brightness to it, and you get a lot cleaner of an image then. And I think it turned out really nice for this one in particular, because you've got that light pollution kind of blowing up in the bottom left, and it kind of motivates the light that's bouncing off the rocks, as well as myself, despite it being the morning light breaking through from the horizon. Obviously, it's a shame that light pollution is actually there, although it does add a nice color to the image overall. But I think we can all agree that a little less light pollution would be a lot nicer. So thanks again for checking out the images, and I hope you enjoyed the video. I'm not too sure what my next video will be based on. I've got a few ideas written down for what it could be, but if there's anything specific you want me to try and tackle, please do let me know. Or maybe I can leave a few suggestions in the comments for you to pick from what I've got on my notes. But until then, thanks for stopping by.